You're listening to Don't Waste Water.
Water is in fact treated with oil. And I think if you went to the CEOs of all the brands we're very familiar with, they'd probably be shocked to learn that their water is actually treated with oil. Polyacrylamide is also, not a very loved chemistry and has potential harmful effects. We think this is a wonderful opportunity to get rid of that.
Hello, bonjour, and welcome to the Don't Waste Water podcast.
We broke down our business strategy into two simple steps. One, prove it. The second, world domination.
Any questions?
I'm your host, Antoine Walter, and in today's episode, I'm delighted to welcome Amiel Lake as my guest.
Who are you? We're used to this technology that's been around for 40 plus years. It comes from, a handful of suppliers. Why should I change? The cost of having an upset in my system is much higher than trying your new technology.
Amiel is Chief Commercial Officer and co-founder of Carbonet.
I would like the investment community to wake up. There are so many wonderful companies in this space. I'll throw Carbonet in there as well. But, we need to solve this problem. We are running out of water, and we're not going to do it by investing only in AI.
Carbonet generates programmable flocculants, coagulants, and targeting agents that adapt to any application and significantly improve an industrial's P&L and market position.
Yeah, if you don't mind getting punched in the face, it's great timing.
In more or less 250 interviews, here what Amiel shares today is a first at multiple levels, starting with this. You know how one has to be confident in his technology to push it through the cumbersome adoption maze in the water sector, right? So often, founders and entrepreneurs will be deeply convinced they can significantly improve the status quo for their customers. Yet, in my experience, it's the first time I've met a company that's so confident they also invest in their customers. Sure, invest in the sense that they will do their best to serve them right, but that wouldn't be a first. The first is that they literally invest money in their customers, because if they leverage Carbonet's benefits, it will serve them right. To me, that's an entirely new level of self-confidence, isn't it? Then here's another first. We've often discussed how there's a legit apprehension among end users to adopt new technology when the incumbent has served them right. Not greatly, not cheaply, not perfectly, but right. How can you convince them that your replacement will at least do the same? Well, there as well, Carbonet got creative. They reproduce an end user's plant. They go collect his actual effluent and run it with their chemicals, so you cannot argue it would fit a generic plant, but not yours, because they actually show it to you. Here's your doppelganger and see, it works. And one more first, it's the first time we discuss polyacrylamide on this microphone, coupled with the perspective to turn flocculant makedown into a much easier and reliable process.
To say that that's exciting is an understatement.
And as dry as it sounds, it makes for a really cool conversation. I had great fun recording, and I believe you will enjoy following. So how does Carbonet plan to prevent us from treating water with oil going forward? What are nanonets? How did a big spring show turn the tide for the company? Did they just reinvent resource recovery? How is spam the new Karen? Let's answer those and much more right after I remind you that if you like what you hear, please take this episode and share it with a colleague, a friend, your boss, or your team. Think of that one the next time you need a small talk at the water dispenser, and I'll meet you on the other side. Hi, Amiel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Antoine, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks for having me in your lab. So I'm really happy to discover a bit what Carbonet has to offer. But you want to displace the market for coagulants and flocculants. But let's be more specific. What is that very specific challenge you're aiming for? And what is your unique proposition?
We want to replace the market in primarily flocculants, but actually we have bigger ambitions, if you will. We're out there to change a lot of chemistries that are used in both water treatment and resource extraction. We're pretty excited about the technology, and we kind of have hopes of total world domination in our minds. But to answer your question very specifically on the first set of products we've commercialized, we've created a suite of flocculants that actually the enemy in this is polyacrylamide. PAM is the new Karen. We've created a flocculant that actually has 80% less polyacrylamide in its formula, and we have a path to getting to zero. I come to the industry from technology, and it was quite an irony to understand that water is in fact treated with oil. And I think if you went to the CEOs of all the brands we're very familiar with, from Tesla to Nike to Coca-Cola, they'd probably be shocked to learn that their water is actually treated with oil. And in fact, polyacrylamide is also, not a very loved chemistry and has potential harmful effects. We think this is a wonderful opportunity to get rid of that and still give customers a very economical and safe way to treat their water, but also better for their planet.
I was going to come to the economical part of it, because usually when you do better, it comes with a green premium. Better for the planet, not so good for your budget. But if I'm right, I'm going to take my cheat sheet. It's not your case. You are reducing crew hours by 35 to 50%. You're cutting the cost to treat by 50%, and you're reducing the chemicals by 90%. So it's greener and it's cheaper. What's not to love? Asked differently, it's too good to be true.
It's kind of funny. When we started this company, we had a mission to do well and to do good. We actually don't think they have to be separated. That is, we can build a very strong business that's extremely profitable, high returns for, everyone involved. And it also has a tremendous positive impact on the environment. In the case of our product, we designed it recognizing that the economics of business, no one wants to pay a premium to save the planet. As sad as that sounds, that is the case. So we designed the product, and we were fortunate enough with our technology to be able to do that, where it's not an or, as in you can treat this water and be better for the planet, or you can save money. Because of the way our technology works, and the reality is we actually have very few chemicals in our products, that we're able to create and offer a product that is cheaper and better for the planet.
That's the vision. Let's look into the path. Take me back to a slightly younger version of you, who is an entrepreneur in residence at UBC, if I'm right. You say you come from tech. You don't come from the water environment. I don't know if you had to deal with PAM in the past, but I'm wondering at what point you zero in and say, that was PAM in that thing, which is water treatment. That is where I'm going to make a difference.
I'll tell you the story of how we landed on our product. And I think like all, what I hope good businesses is they listen to the customer and the market. When I first met Mike at UBC, what I saw and, what Barry saw and Bill, the other co-founders, is that Mike was an incredible person, incredibly bright. So not just a wonderful person, but a wonderfully bright person. And what he created had tremendous precision. Like he had this ability to create these molecules that you could then design to target very specific issues in wastewater. At the time, we did not know where to apply that or where would have the greatest value, because sometimes the best market for you is not necessarily the best market where you start, because there might be a bunch of regulation to plow through, might be you have to raise zillions to get in, and you have to really consider the go-to-market, the commercialization strategy, as well as bringing the tech to market. In terms of the flocculants that we've created that are, PAM 80 to 90% and almost PAM-free, that idea came from a customer. We went down to the Permian Basin. We had thought we were going to develop chemistries that would target other issues for them. It wasn't until over a bowl of nachos, which is very common in the Permian Basin, that this customer said, you know what, if you really wanted to solve a problem for me, you get rid of my polymer. It's icky, it's sticky, it's a safety hazard. My guys are out there mixing it down. It's often inconsistent. I mean, we were dealing with sites where they were mixing a tote every hour on the hour, which, as you can imagine, if you're running a site that deals with peroxide, changing water, other chemicals, having an operator tasked with doing that it's inefficient. It's a risk to meeting the KPIs. And of course, it's a safety hazard. And he said to us, if you get rid of that and eliminate make down, give us a better product, that would be interesting. And we actually took our underlying technology, we adjusted it a bit. We call this technology nanonuts. We married it with PAM, and boom, Simple Flock was born.
Let's take just 1 minute to explain to the ones that might not be familiar with it what Makedown actually is.
So Makedown is, think of making orange juice. So I'm probably old enough that I remember frozen orange juice. I don't know if people still sell that in grocery stores. But it's you take your frozen orange juice or Tang powdered, I know that's still around, and you add water and you mix it and boom, you're ready. That's makedown. You have to prepare the chemical before it enters the water treatment system. It needs to be diluted. But of course, there's all kinds of things that could happen that would break the inconsistency. So you go back to making orange juice, you add too many crystals or too much frozen stuff, the water's warm or what have you, and you don't have a consistent product. And that's exactly what happens with makedown. Now, there is equipment out there that can make it automated, more consistent, but now you're talking costs. And what happens to that equipment when it breaks down? Maintenance. When you're dealing with things like the first market we went after, which was the Permian Basin, those are remote areas. Who wants to truck out a bunch of equipment, teach operators to use it, have them do that while managing a bunch of other stuff? It doesn't make any sense. That's makedown.
You're mentioning the Permian Basin. Isn't there a dichotomy here? Because on one end, it's oil and gas extraction. So what you're treating is produced water, which comes as a byproduct from oil and gas. And there you want to reduce the polymer because it's a too high dependency on oil and gas. So on one end, you have produced water, which you have in always larger quantities because the deposits are getting a bit more shallow, difficult to access and stuff like that. So more water to treat because of oil, which you want to treat with less oil. How does all of that connect?
There's a lot of ironies in this business, but you look at the oil and gas producers, they're there to provide energy. Having petrochemical-based water treatment chemistry, is that a core business of theirs? Or would they rather improve their Scope 3 emissions, improve how their water is treated, improve the message and their ESG profile? I mean, you're seeing a lot of these companies take very strong stances of, yes, they are oil and gas, but they do care about the environment.
So you go to address a market which has a kind of pressing needs. By that time, you have some liters of a prototype of what NanoNet would become. How do you go from that early nacho experience to having an actual product and taking it to your first site?
So Antoine, we broke down our business strategy into two simple steps. One, prove it. The second, world domination.
Okay.
Any questions?
I'm kidding. It's not that simple. And any entrepreneur who's listening to this, please know, it is not that simple. We spent 18 months proving the product in the field. We had failed trials, huge learnings, listening to the customer, optimizing. We're lucky that the technology that Mike has invented and since been worked on by our brilliant team of scientists and our field team, that we're able to optimize it and really improve it. But we did that based on listening to the customer. The first 18 months, we were proving it out. Then guess what? We issued our first invoice after we finally had our kind of great successful trial, which any company entering any industry but trying to commercialize the technology, it's not easy. You need to do that. And COVID hit.
Great timing.
So we have sort of this joke. The first invoice we issued was on March 16th, 2020.
Good timing?
Yeah, if you don't mind getting punched in the face, it's great timing. When we proved it at that point, and we took all the learnings of the failed trials that came before that, we knew we had something very special. We understood the customer, we understood the market, and we were willing to double down. And actually, when COVID hit and 85% of the market kind of went away overnight, we very carefully and very thoughtfully said, you know what? We're going to invest in this market. We believe it's coming back, and we have something that's going to solve, that blood spurting pain that entrepreneurs are always looking for. And we did. And by July, the market turned back on. We were scaling up our manufacturing, and now we are the largest flocculant supplier in the Permian Basin for the treatment of produced water for reuse, and growing into other markets.
Well, it's a great place to start with. How do you make the difference? I think I had that conversation with Alex Crowell from Pure Terra.
I bucket technologies only in 3 buckets: jewelry, aspirin, or oxygen.
At what time over your 18 months of piloting do you really get that aha moment on your end and on the customer's end where they say, oh, that is my oxygen?
In software, which was my prior experience, you never really got an emotional reaction by demonstrating a feature on your software platform. When you see dirty water go crystal clear and the effort it took to get there, you see an emotional reaction. I mean, people, holy, beep, 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 enter expletive. So we knew from those reactions, and we worked very hard to understand what they needed to see before doing that. I mean, I'd love to tell you a just a quick story, if I can, about one of the things we did to commercialize, because I think for any entrepreneur and anyone in the water industry, they find it interesting. We would go out to these sites and we'd prove the chemistry works on bench scale. So small jars, right? It's very funny. The first time we did that, the individual we were trying to demonstrate this chemistry for, he was kind of almost sitting on top of Mike, our scientist and founder, an amazing person. After a while, we said, listen, why are you sitting on top of him, basically? Like, he wouldn't even let him go to the washroom. He finally said, listen, I've run trials before, and when I turned around, someone basically took a bottle of Dasani water and poured it in and passed it off as, this experiment worked. We were shocked to learn that, but apparently that stuff happens. The second hurdle that we had to cross after that was, okay, it works in small jars, but who are you? We're used to this technology that's been around for 40 plus years. It comes from, a handful of suppliers. Yes, there's lots of distributors. Why should I change? The cost of having an upset in my system is much higher than trying your new technology. We would see these sort of great job on the bench scale. Wow, very exciting. But the phone would go quiet and we couldn't get them to give us a big scale trial. So we invented something called the Big Spring Show. We had a yard out in Big Spring, Texas. And if you've never been there, it's a beautiful place in some ways. But it's also, very well situated in the Permian Basin. We basically create a pilot scale, 100 barrels per day type of thing. And we recreate the actual water treatment systems of the customers we were prospecting. We completely designed out our yard. There was our branding, and we would get their water and we would truck it in because we'd say, okay, fine, you don't believe us. We're going to show you at sort of the next level. Don't worry, you don't have to unplug your system and give us a try. We're going to really invest in this, and we're going to show you on your system in a smaller scale how we treat your water. And we had our scientists there. We shared a lot of information about how the product worked. We even gave them ice cream.
So step one is at the very, very small scale, they distrust you by default because others have cheated them. You show them that you're not cheating, it's working at small scale. That's okay. That, again, everybody can take that advice and apply it. But then risk aversion, which is the biggest hurdle in this industry, we know that. Yeah. You overcome that by basically taking account-based marketing to an entire new level.
We got creative.
Recreating their plans and saying, hey, look, in the copy of the plant, it's working. That's before 2020, I guess. Yep. So that's before your big raise.
It was right before 2020. Sorry, you're right. Yes.
So you're taking a huge financial risk.
Oh, yes.
What is the thought process to take that plunge? Like, we do that. If we succeed, we conquer the world, step 2. Or if we fail, well, we're dead, but we tried.
The cost of this kind of demo center isn't as much as you think. And honestly, the risk reward was worth it. Yes, we recreated at pilot scale these systems. We trucked in water. We flew down our team, gave them ice cream. We actually even made them T-shirts that said Believer at the end. And I'm not joking. We would see people at the airport afterwards in their Believer T-shirts. We got creative. But from an investment perspective, it was a no-brainer. We had to overcome that. We call it healthy skepticism, which we get. We appreciate and understand why we're met with that.
So you overcome that healthy skepticism. Straight away, they send you the order, or are there still other hurdles?
You know what happened after that? They gave us the chance to trial on their system. So that's what we had to do to earn the trust that we were serious, the respect that we were going to take them and their business and the risks that they were facing, right? Because again, if you mess up their water, that's not worth it, right? They really trusted and believed in us that we would take that next step very seriously. And then we had to perform.
So bench, demo, pilot, every time you tick the box, 18 months go, you get the first order, COVID hits. And now you're back to brainstorming about what will happen during that lockdown.
I think I took up golfing in that period. No, I'm kidding.
But so COVID comes along. Did you even think of like pivoting, like saying maybe oil and gas doesn't come back after COVID? We may want to look at another field, or you went bullish and said, no, that's our field?
We certainly had conversations about what do we do? Where do we focus? We're a business. We raise funds. We have an obligation to shareholders. We want to grow our amazing team. But we knew we had something special, and we believed in the market that we were targeting. Once it turned back on, we took off.
On that special, like again, explain to me like I'm 5. We explained how you are reducing the make down. We explained how it doesn't come at a green premium. Something which was marking to me in your customer feedback, which you have in your documentation, is some of your customers say stuff which was there forever. We put the nanonets inside and it was just washing out. So what I'm getting from that kind of feedback is in terms of performance, it's not only just reaching the standard, it's establishing a new standard. So what's the magic? How does it work?
Depending on the application, you will see the nanonets do some pretty magical things. Absolutely. What is driving that? It's the underlying technology. You compare polyacrylamide, probably a fair analogy is it's blind. It can't discern one particle for another. And in the water treatment process, there's a lot of stuff that inhibits polyacrylamide being efficient. What the nanonets are doing is it's going in with the polyacrylamide. It's almost like a seeing eye dog, which, marketing did not approve that analogy. And it's saying, go here, not there. The result is that you actually need a lot less polyacrylamide to get the job done because it's being efficient. It's knowing where to bridge. It's knowing what to avoid. The water is conditioned. That is the underlying magic of the nanonets. We're actually enhancing the performance or boosting the performance of polyacrylamide, yet another inverse logic, such that you actually don't need very much. The path to zero for us is we have a way to actually recreate the polyacrylamide completely, but with all natural, sustainable materials. But I can't tell you too much about it.
When does that come within the roadmap? Is it before or after the raise, which you did in 2022?
We're working on it right now. So this is
after the raise.
It's path 2. Yeah.
Okay, because that takes you to a different bracket. In your marketing documentation, there's also a cool analogy to say that polyacrylamide is a 100-person worker doing busy work for 80% of the time and really working on 20% of the time. You're getting rid of the busy work and now you only pay for the 20%. So, okay, I get the story. That's water related. I get it. Now, when you say you can replace polyacrylamide the way it's derived from oil and gas by a bio-based polyacrylamide, that sounds to me like beyond just water, because now you could be aiming at a bigger field. And a hint for that for me was that if I understand it right, you're aiming at a 7 billion per year market, and the total market for flocculants in water treatment is 2 billion, which is huge, but which is a fraction of the 7 billion you're aiming to disrupt, which gets me thinking you are now ambitioning to go beyond just water.
Oh yeah, not just with our bio products, but the NanoNet platform, if you go back to it, what it is the ability to create molecules that target specific things in aqueous solution. So wastewater, yeah, you can target the bad and remove it. Arsenic, mercury, selenium. But you can also target the good. You moved here because you're interested in lithium. What if there are molecules to remove lithium? What about molecules to separate fly ash from coal tailings ponds? We really are extremely bullish. Now, these are not easy products to bring to market. These are not easy industries to break into. They are long-proof cycles. There's competition. There's healthy skepticism. But we're incredibly excited about the potential of this technology.
Which leads me to the finance part. You raise in 2022.
We've raised quite a bit. Most of it is actually from friends and family, if you will. So people that were part of our previous businesses that received exits. So maybe not family, but angels. We did do a Series A round in 2021. The collective round was just over $5 million US.
I understand you don't want to disclose the total amount. It's not really about that. It's more about the last time someone on that microphone was discussing with me about tailoring specific molecules to specific applications and stuff like that is when I discussed that with Ginkgo Bioworks. Ginkgo Bioworks went IPO, raised in the hundreds of millions, and went to several billions of capitalization.
Yeah.
Which, as they are my only reference point, makes me think that you are incredibly bootstrapped. How do you manage to box with the titans if you have maybe a fraction of their means?
Focus.
Okay.
Tremendous focus. Right now, we've brought our flocculants to market, and we have coagulants that work very well with our flocculants. We haven't commercialized the other products we want to bring to market. We'd like to. Financing is a question we're constantly exploring, and we believe that we would go much faster with it. But right now, we're focused on dominating one market at a time.
You're the leader in the Permian Basin. You could become the world leader in produced water. So that's step one.
Or in flocculants, food and beverage, construction, municipal. These are the markets we're going after and with earnest. And we've deployed in them. We're growing our market share. And right now, it's North America, but we are starting to think very strategically about how to grow in Europe. So that's next.
What's the go-to market for a young company entering the flocculant market when all these end users are served by the distributors, which are already distributing Chemira, Ecolab, and the likes? Are you using the same channels or are you building something for your own?
Same playbook we used in the Permian. Best tech, best price. Carbonet's lucky in a way. Yes, we are, we're the underdogs. And so, anyone who wants to root for the underdogs, come put your support behind Carbonet. But we're lucky in that we get to offer the service model and support. It stems from, my background, Barry's background, Bill's background, albeit on the software side, but being very obsessed with the customer. My colleague, Jack, he's our SVP of our field operations. He is amazing. If a customer has a problem, him and his amazing team, they're going to solve it. We're able to go into a market. They don't have to compromise the environment. They don't have to compromise on price. And we get to service them as if we were a service company.
So what's the scope? Where does it stop? Where does it start? What is within the service?
If you call Carbonet, you can send us your water, or we'll go out to site and we'll test the water. And we'll recommend if we're a fit or not, how much dosing. We'll write up the kind of full business case, the economics. We'll pay for the scaled trial ourselves. Sometimes we'll ask for a customer, depending on scope, if they'll co-invest. But in terms of paying, we'll send our resources out. We will babysit that trial. We will ensure it's optimized. We will provide pumps for, the right size. We will provide containment for the right size. We will price in shipping if it makes sense. We will have people on site, not just after a successful trial, but to optimize and to check. If you're in trouble, Carbonet will come and help you. And you can't really say that about a lot of other companies in the space.
But I'm still not sure I understand the boundaries. I get the beginning that they send you in the water, but then what you deliver, is it like you've proven it to work in the lab, you've given it the right formula, and then they apply it? Or now are you taking like a kind of process guarantee and you're also deploying in the field and you're hitting a technical target?
Everything we described is in the field. We supply the chemistry, the pumps, which I forgot to mention earlier, the people to support it, the whole kit and caboodle. We ensure any operator is comfortable with us leaving. So there's a whole transition process. We really invest. We did this because we've learned that if you don't do that, customers, may not always succeed with your product.
Does that mean that you started with a CapEx sales model, or given the fact that you come from a software background, as a service was always on the roadmap?
We sell as a chemical company, so people buy on consumption, but we offer our customer experience as if it was a complete offering.
So it's a conciergerie type of chemical deal that you buy the chemical, but you get like
you get success with
experience.
It. Exactly.
Okay. How do you manage all of that with 45 people?
50. And, I'll go back to focus. We can't obviously do that for somebody who wants to buy a drum here, a tote there. We really focus on customers that consume a lot of the products we sell, that we know we can be extremely successful for them. And then we invest exactly like we did in the Permian and doing the Big Spring Show.
I get it. I get the focus point. Now, where I don't get it is the kind of divergence you have when I look in the future. Because for now, it's super focused with coagulants, flocculants working today, really taking it out, blowing it out of the water. Awesome. I also see the vision of getting rid of PAM. But where you lose me a bit is when you go into saying that you could be doing resource recovery, you could be going into different verticals. Is it like now you're throwing stuff at the wall and one or two will stick and then we focus on those? Or really you can manage all of that?
Antoine, that's a great question, and one we've wrestled with for the last 6 years, and I imagine we'll continue to wrestle with. The business of where the technology can go, like the reach, the potential, that's a way bigger business than the one we have today. We know that. We know we need to capitalize it to go after, and we almost envision that these could be independent businesses, like our fly ash business, our lithium business. We've talked internally because we often have companies coming to us about this notion of a Carbonet Labs, where someone says, listen, I have a problem. And, we go and we investigate. We realize there's a real unmet need and kind of substantial market. And we go develop the molecule to solve that problem. But we recognize that's a bigger business. So we're focused today, but kind of eye on the prize. And we do want to capitalize the company to take advantage of the full potential of the technology.
So you're considering spin out? Is it part of the plan, or is it something you say, well, we considered it, but we won't do it? I'm telling you where I'm coming from is that the only unicorn in the water sector, there's only one, it's Gradient. Gradient from the get-go had that strategy that whenever something might be attracting a different profile of investor, a different profile of clients, let's branch it out. They branched out Turing to do the AI. They branched out the DLE arm, which they have. Whenever they have something which is substantial enough to be branched out, they will do it. And it serves them right because they are the only unicorn in the sector. So is that a model you want to emulate? Or would you rather be eyeing at an Ecolab, which is just the second largest water company?
We're wrestling with these options. One thing we do know is there's been you're in water. I'm in water. We see this impending doom and gloom of the world running out of fresh water. And it is serious. I mean, it really is the KPI of climate change. Despite that, the investment world has this unexplainable lethargy around getting excited about the water space. We'd love to see that change. We think that, there's a lot we can do, and a lot of other companies, I think people are investing 50 cents here and $2 over there. We're really weighing our options. How do we capitalize to reach the full potential where we're taking out lithium, we're taking out gold, we're taking out fly ash? How do we build a strong financial business in the process? And right now we're wrestling with options and we're trying to stay focused in order to achieve that. But are spinouts, an option? Yes. Was an IPO an option one day? Yes. I mean, all of these things are potential pieces on our canvas, but we haven't made any decisions yet.
You didn't talk it out from maybe the most obvious path, which would be, hey, you're innovative. You've been going into a very specific market where you were able to nail it down. You probably can replicate that in other markets. You're the perfect target.
We may be a desirable target for a number of companies. We see ourselves, it's very funny. We had this customer tell us, you're not a polymer company. You're right. We're a technology company. And actually, we're an advanced material company. We're replacing materials. We're going to replace polyacrylamide. We're going to replace other materials. Does that make us a desirable target? Probably. Is that something that's on the table today? Right now, we're just focused on building a business.
We scratched the surface on finance. You have absolutely no reason to answer my question, but I was still going to ask, what are your sales today and are you profitable?
We're growing and we're happy.
Okay, that's a good one. I'm going to be
Bring it on.
Pushing you on your marketing.
It
was linked to finance being difficult to bring into water. We do know that 0.6 to 0.7% of any impact money poured in the world goes into water, when if you ask individual investors, they will tell you that their first impact topic is water. What kind of surprised me with your marketing is that it starts from a level where I'm like, I agree with everything you say. I have a hard time connecting it with what you do. There is that water scarcity, which is increasing. It's a problem and everything. I know those challenges. I just don't get how that's your best opening line to then introduce what you do. Explain me how stupid I am.
I was going to say, what should it be? We're an advanced material company, and the first business we're in is water treatment. You're not going to solve the issues of water scarcity through just conservation. When we manufacture, whether it's baby carrots or Tesla cars or we frack, we use a ton of water. That is just part of it. And we have to be extremely responsible about how we use that water, because if we are going to either reuse it or put it down a drain, it's got to be the right KPI. It has to look the right way so it goes back into that space responsibly. That's water treatment, and our product enables that. We are part of that solution. And we believe water reuse, water treatment, water recycling, all of that is only going to grow.
I fully agree with you. Just a spin I would put on that is you're making make-down, which can be a process which sometimes is good, sometimes is wrong. You're just taking that out of the equation. So now all the time, the treatment is going to be accurate. So to me, the number one thing that brings is that you ensure that none of these produced water companies will be spilling stuff to the environment, which they should not. I would have seen the number one advantage more on the environmental and dirty sides than on the we preserve water side. Probably equally important.
But remember the economics. They're treating more. These companies are recycling produced water because it makes sense for the business. And we're part of that equation. Yes, we are just one piece of the treatment pie. It's our customers that get the credit for doing the recycling of water, but they can't do it unless the entire supply chain makes sense. And we're a critical part of that.
Again, I don't pretend I have the answer. It's just that when I read your case studies and I read that case study from the guy who said, all of a sudden, all my stuff, which was dirty, became clean. I was thinking, no, That's the number one pressing pain, because anyone who's visited an industrial plant knows how the dirty side of the water looks like. And if that is what you offer, well, it's simply too good to be put as a number 2 and number 3 argument. That's number 1. My very humble 2 cents.
Are you looking for a job?
Not at all. After that tangent, I'm sorry about that. There was one other thing where I didn't know where we were heading with that, which is you explained how your molecules can be now designed to catch a specific thing. And that to me means you can do molecules fit for purpose. And you're also saying that you can do that thanks to increasingly powerful AI models. Now you bring the AI buzzwords. I'm like, awesome. What do you do there?
What buzzword? Yeah. On the nanonet side, AI is not as important because we've really mapped out. But in terms of molecule creation, we really are designing these molecules. You have to remember our founder came from biochemistry and drug delivery. So the concept of precision is really important. And he applied that to chemistry, which of course we're using for water treatment. We have aspirations to do a lot more with it. So yes, we can create these novel molecules. Where the AI comes in, and we're still really figuring it out, is actually on the bio perspective. I can't go into too much detail about it, but there is quite a bit of data that we can leverage to constantly improve our formulas, which will also improve the types of products and markets we go after. And you're right, it is much bigger than water treatment.
So that's the future. What's the timeline for that?
Hard to say. Science, I'm told constantly, because, I'm on the commercial side, so I want that product, yesterday and working perfectly and never an issue. But I'm told science is sometimes the impossible. So we'll see.
But aspirationally, we're speaking like 18 months, 5 years, 20 years?
We're working very hard right now, and we're excited.
Another aspect of that future plan is that when it comes to lithium, gold, fly ashes, as you said, you're not removing them, you're catching them, which means now you need to recover them. So is that also part of what you're looking at, or is a different part of the value chain and they will deal with it?
The way that we've engineered this technology, it's not like we're just saying, we can do this and we haven't tried it in the lab. So, these examples I'm citing, we've proven them to, various scales. When you separate just the piece you want out, obviously the separation, recovery, all of that is done. So we, think of it as flocculation or liquid solid separation. But in these cases, it's lithium, it's fly ash that can then be physically removed.
So you separate out, but it's not like pooled and trapped together with some of your products. Your products would go away from themselves.
Our products release very quickly.
Okay, Then it's even better than what I thought. See, crazy good.
I told you, I'm excited for you to learn about Carbonet. I'm thankful you're interviewing us, but I'm really excited that, we're on your radar.
This precious metal recovery sounds like, if it works technically, what prevents you from just pushing it out? And
this is with all technologies. What could go wrong? There's a lot of science involved. There's a lot of nuances to really understanding the issues these industries face. You're probably well more versed in lithium than I am. When we've looked at it, there's a lot of different competing technologies that, in the world of chemistry or even fold-in equipment, you solve one thing, but you could potentially create another issue. So it really comes down to us really understanding what needs to happen and then designing the molecule to do that. There'll be limitations, there always are. And then, of course, scaling that up and proving it at scale. And water, whether you're trying to take out the good or the bad, it's kind of like snowflakes. It changes a lot. It's always different. It's a very complicated space to make things work in.
I'm now curious if I zoom out a bit, because you highlighted how you're dealing with the commercial part. Was it your first time going into the commercial field at Carbonet because they needed to have someone dealing with that within the co-founder team? Or is that your background? Because you come partly from academia, partly from software. So what is your major?
My heart of hearts, I'm an entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, you're a hustler. I ran sales at my previous company, as well as being the CEO for the first 5 years. Commercialization is part of my blood. And the reason is because my favorite place professionally, personally, it's with my kids, but professionally is being in front of the customer and understanding their issues.
Which brings me exactly to where I wanted to go, which is the commercial side of the job in the water sector is very different, according to a lot of people, to what you will see in other industries. Like it's frustrating, takes ages. You can come and be 50% better. They're still going to tell you, but the other one works. Did you encounter all this frustration? Or a bit like, I think the best example I had from that was Megan Glover, who came from fully outside the industry when she created 120 Water, and who said, she didn't know what was impossible. So she just did it because, to her, it was fully possible.
And throw in that some of these spaces are, a good old boys club as well, making it just extra challenging.
We have less women working in the water sector than they are women taxi drivers and women priests, which just makes you put into perspective the boys club. So sorry.
I'm aware. I'm very aware. Sometimes the only, female I'll see on my business trips is, where I order coffee or, buy a present for my daughter when I come back. So I'm very aware. Perseverance, I joked about being a hustler, but a mentality for Carbonet. We have a lot of grit. We really believe in the technology. And I think if you can demonstrate results as un-entrepreneurial, and I understand it, the stakes are high. They can't ruin their system to change out a technology. But as un-entrepreneurial or as risk averse or, reasonable they are, if you prove it, they will take a look.
Which leads me to my closing question for this deep dive, which is, what is your 2030 vision for Carbonet?
Well, it's kind of interesting you use 2030 because that's when, we'll outstrip our fresh water supply by 40%. So by 2030, I really hope our world domination plan is in full effect. I see us being a global company. I see us having many products. It's only 6 years out. So, we have a lot of work to do to get there. But yes, we are in Vancouver. I think we have the opportunity to build a world-class company that can go and dominate the industry.
And now circling back to what needs to happen in the next 12 months so that you are on track for that, you have one major metric?
I would like the investment community to wake up. There are so many wonderful companies in this space. I'll throw Carbonet in there as well. But, we need to solve this problem. We are running out of water, and we're not going to do it by investing only in AI.
I'm blessed with having some investors listening and watching to this. So what type of investor are you looking for? Is it VC? Is it growth stage? Is it later stage?
It's kind of like the t-shirt we gave. We're looking for believers. I've invested personally. Our board, many members of our board have invested personally. The management team, my amazing co-founders have invested personally. Many of our colleagues have. We really believe in what we're doing. Anyone who really understands what we're trying to do, both in a kind of immediate opportunity and scale upside, those are great fits for us.
Maybe some elements which you've touched on shortly, but also reflect in your other type of occupation when you're not grinding at Carbonet. You were a co-founder of the Women's Equity Lab. Tell me about it.
It's a very exciting initiative. So I founded this company called Tega, a software company in the marketing space, and we were acquired. I was 26 years old when I started it, kind of a year or two older than I am now. And when we exited, it's kind of funny, you get handed this piece of paper of the name and then, how much money on the wire transfer, and you sign off on it, right? Just to kind of go through. And it's sort of this last piece of paper on the acquisition. And you run down that list, there were 2 women on it, myself and one other person. Then you think about all the other issues, like women on the board, women in the executive, women in the VP suite, and on and on. The idea of the Women's Equity Lab is, one, if you can get women to get comfortable to invest in, our focus is kind of very early stage asset class, so the startups, that then you have the ability to influence positively, whether directly or indirectly, women on the board, because now you're part of the cap table. And then women on the board, women on the executive, right? And it's sort of that corporate hierarchy. The board is beholden to the shareholders. The CEO is beholden to the board. And so we wanted to address those issues and create a very positive environment. It's fun. It's like a club. We all invest together by creating the Women's Equity Lab.
And so does that work on a meeting basis, occasion basis? How do you interact?
I must say, I'm not involved in it anymore. My sister actually gets all the credit, and Irene Djorsman, and there's so many wonderful women involved in building and scaling this. And the credit really does go to my sister. So it was kind of a family initiative as a sidebar. The way we ran it in the early days was it was a club, and it was a comfortable club. Community is a powerful thing. So we would get women to all put in $5,000. And then we'd have companies pitch us. We'd do the due diligence, which is a huge part of the education as an investor. We'd discuss the due diligence, like a report would be developed. And then we'd decide if we wanted to invest or not. From there, women in this, because there's all kind of very wonderful women, we get asked to be part of the board. They would invest alongside. They might know people that, the CEOs would need to hire. And so it had all these really wonderful positive effects stemming from there.
I think that's a perfect way to close that deep dive. Thanks a lot for the openness. If that's fine with you, I would switch to the last section, which is the rapid fire questions.
It's time for the rapid fire questions.
What is the toughest challenge, in your opinion, for a water tech startup?
Capital and the customer. Breaking through to the customer, getting enough capital.
What's the drop of knowledge you wish more investors knew about the water sector?
That is an incredibly exciting space. And I started my career in finance when gold was like $500. And everyone there was saying it was going to go, I can't think of what it is exactly now, but it was going to go well over $1,000 at one point. It's being there at the right place, buy low, sell high. Yeah, water is incredibly exciting because no one can argue with how pressing the need is on a global basis to solve this issue.
What would be your best single piece of advice for the founders and managers of the about 1,000 early-stage water startups?
Be creative. Your customer is not ready for you. They're not looking for you. You're not selling to someone who is, who's been out there trying to find your solution 99% of the time. If you have a technology that meaningfully solves their issue, like that blood spurting pain, not an aspirin. Someone's neck is just shooting blood and you've got a tourniquet. Then you've got to figure out a way for the customer to cure that and bring it to market.
What was your most unexpected partnership and what did it bring you?
This industry is interesting because there's a lot of hierarchy. My favorite show is The Wire. I don't know if you've ever seen it, right? So it's like you have the drug dealers and their whole hierarchy, and then you have like the politicians, the police, and, they're sort of the saying, the shit rolls downhill, right? We're but one piece of the treatment pie, so we're like almost always the lowly vendor. But we really feel like we're partners. And I don't mean that in a buzzword compliant way. We are deeply invested in the success of our customers, so much so that we created a mini fund inside of Carbonet where we would actually buy shares in our customers. A nominal amount, like a really de minimis amount, but it was a way of really connecting the company and our commitment to their success.
So you found a way to have skin in the game also with your customers.
If they were public, yeah.
That's a cool one.
Pretty funny. We had some excellent returns in the process. A de minimis amount, like a tiny amount. Yeah, our obligation is to build the business that we're doing.
And you get invited to their shareholder meetings, so you get good information.
We get their perspective. Yeah, exactly.
That's a good one. Actually, that's one I should steal. Super short, profitability or growth?
Both.
That's a cheat.
Oh, I know. But listen, like I said, we have a technology that allows us to offer service better for the planet and still be cheaper. I know everyone says you can't have all three, right? But if you really have a paradigm shift in the technology, then you can. We argue we have that. It's not without speed bumps.
Granted. What's the next profile you'll hire?
We're really looking for business development and field application experts, people who are very curious about the industry and want to be part of a fast-growing and incredibly bright team. We started with business development because we are actually hiring, and so that's kind of top of mind. Field application, that is also very interesting to us.
Can you get me a sense of your trajectory? 50 people now, how many last year and how many next year?
So we sort of we've modeled out various scenarios that have, depending on kind of what direction we go down. We don't need a company of hundreds of people. We think we'll be incredibly profitable. We didn't grow a lot from a people-wise over last year. I think we probably kind of puts and takes. Maybe I have 5 to 10. We could get up to 160 and be an incredibly powerful business. It's really more about the quality, not the quantity.
And the quality, when you hire that business development person or process person, sector experience or startup experience?
That's such a good question and one we wrestle with. You want grit because no one knows who Carbonet is. So if you're selling Carbonet, it's not like selling one of the commodity chemicals out there. You're not lined out in an RFP. You're not badged in. You can't just call and say, I'm from, pick your flavor, and they'll, let you come and get water and test it. So you need a lot of grit. But to really figure out where to aim and be super focused, you actually need a lot of domain expertise. So, it's funny. I work with this recruiter and, we say no a lot because we get a lot of CVs in and we don't look at them. So what we really are trying to do is find someone who has grit, who's excited, who wants to make a difference. We offer very competitive comp plans, but actually has domain expertise to help guide us. It's hard to find.
If that's you know where to reach out, so that's good. What is that tool nobody speaks about, but you couldn't live without?
My answer is going to be so lame. LinkedIn.
It's a good one.
I mean, maybe it's because of the work I do. The other thing is these conferences. So, I come from marketing software, a land far, far, far away from chemistry, oil field, water. And, we deal with brands like Nike, Adidas, Red Bull. We go to these conferences. Do you think the CEOs or the chief marketing officers, kind of our target customers, were walking around these events? Never. I mean, never. They would send, their intern to these events. It's very hard, kind of customer profile to penetrate. You go to, GWI, Water Meets Money, AWT, WefTech, all the CEOs are there. Like, it blows my mind that they're there. So, normally I wouldn't say go to an event, but some of these events are extremely valuable. And LinkedIn. Again, that's my orientation. I'm sure if Mike was sitting beside me, our amazing inventor, my co-founder, he'd probably have a totally different answer.
I was going to say, but that again is a different podcast, but which we could have for 1 hour, because you go to the Water Summit, super cool, you meet a lot of executives, as you said, everything. But then if you want to turn that into a real project, none of those guys are involved with anything closely related to the field. So then if you're more on the technical side, it's not really, but yeah, again, it's a different podcast. What's the single piece of insight your ideal customer profile needs to hear right now?
They got to look at what they're doing and consider, is this really the best way? And we're pretty confident we can save the money, we can improve the safety profile, actually the health and happiness of the operators on site, and we can improve the environmental profile. So I think it's consider, could this be better?
I'll just take a digression here. I had that conversation with Greg Newbloom from Embryon. We discussed about the real pain. And the operator has a pain, which is shoveling sludge, and it's a really dirty job. The executive has a fully different pain, which is a matter of balancing the operating costs and managing the risk and stuff like that. If you concentrate on the pain of the operator, you will make good friends in the field, but you will never sell. How do you ensure that you're targeting the right level of pain? What's your special trick to that?
Okay, so now you're getting to our sales tricks. I don't know if I can share them, Antoine, but I love that. Yes. Yeah, I mean, look, when we approach a customer, we really understand who is who in the organization. If we don't have that right away, we talk quite a bit about how we get to, the right people, and we understand the things that are important to them and the things that we need to demonstrate to satisfy them. We almost kind of think of it like, we go after big customers, right? We sort of think of it as I grew up swimming, so I'm not great at these analogies, but like a soccer where you got to mark your opponent. And it's not that they're opponents, but, we sort of align people to address their issues. Like our field group does a great job in really understanding the field team on the other side's needs. On the executive side, we go very in depth on evaluating and providing real numbers, not qualitative, quantifiable data on the business case, what they're saving, the scope 3 emission reductions, things that matter to them that they can then share with their board if it's relevant.
I said ideal customer profile. Is that a job title for you, or is it really case by case?
The ideal customer profile for us is food and beverage, California, high polymer consumption, Texas, and Pacific Northwest. We're also looking at municipal and construction dewatering. From there, the customer profile is, we've got it figured out a bit, that we know who to target. Do you think we have a pretty compelling case at all levels?
The fact that you have your psychographic so spontaneously out I think gives a flavor as to how close you are to you're nailing exactly who is the ICP. So
I will tell you that in the Permian, we've had field operators on the customer's side threaten to quit if they replaced us. That's more than a vitamin.
It's hard to find a better validation, I guess. What are you desperately needing and want to raise an open call for right now?
More smart people, more open customers, and we want the investment community to wake up.
What can and should I do for you?
That's a great question. I
never said I would do it.
I know, on my lunch. I love your podcast. You've got a lot of fans here. I think what you're doing is wonderful. You're helping to spread the message of the sector. We'd love to talk more, I mean, I think you would enjoy so much talking to Dr. Michael Carlson about the invention in more detail and the potential. I mean, I think that's a whole podcast in itself, as you very rightly mentioned. Connections to smart people that can help us, particularly on the sales side. And, in the investment community, if there's a fit, we'd be keen to talk to them.
I'm meeting some investors next week. I'm not making any promises of any kind, which I cannot hold, but happy to help if I can. Amil, thanks a lot for everything you shared today, and I hope that we will have a sequel at some point when you're dominating the world.
Absolutely. Step 2. Antoine, thank you so much for having me on your show. Like I said, we're big fans, and we really find what you're doing for the sector as a whole admirable. So keep going.
If people, I should have asked that before, want to connect with you, I guess the best place is LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, or I'm happy to give out my email address. I think this is pretty focused place. So MELAMIELLE at carbonet.com, CARBONET.com. Of course, LinkedIn being the easiest as well.
As always, check the show notes. It's down there. If you get spam, I'm not guilty. I wasn't the one taking and giving out your email address.
We'll invest in an AI to solve for that.
Yeah, true. Nowadays, you can solve it that way. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Don't Waste Water. This podcast was brought to you by GF Piping Systems. Loved this episode? Head over to Apple Podcasts to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. See you next time.